Hello, people. Today, we will talk about George Washington. George Washington was an American military leader, statesman, and the founding father who served as the first president of the United States from 1789 to 1797. He is often referred to as the father of his country for his pivotal role in the founding of the United States, both as the leader of the Continental Army during the American Revolution and as the nation's first president. George Washington was born into a wealthy family in Westmoreland County, Virginia. His father, Augustine Washington, was a prosperous planter, and his mother, Mary Ball Washington, ensured George received a basic education. Washington's early years were shaped by the rural, agricultural society of colonial Virginia. After his father's death in 1743, Washington inherited Ferry Farm and later Mount Vernon, estates that would define much of his early adulthood. Washington's initial ambition was to become a land surveyor, and by the age of 16, he had gained practical experience surveying Virginia's frontier. This early work introduced him to influential colonial families and provided him with skills that would later help him as a military leader. Washington's military career began in the early 1750s during the French and Indian War, a conflict between Britain and France over control of North American territory. In 1753, the governor of Virginia sent Washington on a mission to deliver a message to the French, urging them to withdraw from the Ohio Valley. Though this mission failed, it gave Washington his first taste of leadership. In 1754, Washington led a small militia force in a skirmish that resulted in the start of the war. He then gained further military experience when he served as an aide to British General Edward Braddock during a disastrous expedition in 1755. Despite the defeat, Washington's leadership in covering the British retreat earned him a reputation for bravery. In 1759, Washington married Martha Custis, a wealthy widow with 2 children. The marriage significantly boosted Washington's social and financial standing, as he gained control over a large amount of land. Washington managed his vast plantation at Mount Vernon and became one of Virginia's most prominent and respected landowners. He was also elected to the Virginia House of Burgesses, where he advocated for colonial rights amid rising tensions with Britain. As colonial dissatisfaction with British rule grew in the 1760s and 1770s, Washington became more involved in the movement for independence. In 1774, he was chosen as one of Virginia's delegates to the First Continental Congress, where he supported resistance to British policies. When open conflict began in 1775 with the battles of Lexington and Concord, the Continental Congress appointed Washington as commander-in-chief of the newly formed Continental Army. Washington faced significant challenges during the American Revolution. The Continental Army was underfunded, poorly trained, and often faced shortages of supplies. Despite these obstacles, Washington displayed remarkable resilience, particularly during the harsh winter at Valley Forge in 1777 to 1778. His ability to maintain the morale and discipline of his troops was crucial to the survival of the American cause. Washington's most famous military victories include the Battle of Trenton, 1776. Washington crossed the icy Delaware River on Christmas night and led a surprise attack on Hessian forces, securing a much-needed morale boost. The Siege of Yorktown, 1781, Washington, with the help of French forces, trapped British General Cornwallis in Virginia, forcing his surrender and effectively ending the war. After the war ended with the Treaty of Paris in 1783, Washington resigned his commission and returned to private life at Mount Vernon. He planned to spend his remaining years managing his estate, but was soon called back into public service. In 1787, Washington was unanimously elected to preside over the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia, where the U.S. Constitution was drafted. His leadership and support were instrumental in the document's ratification, as he was seen as a unifying figure who could hold the fledgling nation together. In 1789, Washington was unanimously elected as the first president of the United States. He took office in New York City, then the nation's capital, and sought to create a strong federal government while avoiding the appearance of monarchy. During his first term, he established key precedents for future presidents, such as the creation of a cabinet, the title Mr. President, and the peaceful transfer of power. Washington worked with his cabinet, which included notable figures such as Thomas Jefferson as Secretary of State and Alexander Hamilton as Secretary of the Treasury, to stabilize the new nation. Hamilton's financial plan, which included the creation of a national bank and the assumption of state debts, strengthened the federal government's economic standing. Washington was re-elected in 1792, but his second term was marked by increasing political divisions. Two factions emerged: the Federalists, led by Hamilton, who supported a strong central government, and the Democratic Republicans, led by Jefferson, who favored states' rights and a more agrarian society. Washington's second term also saw significant challenges in foreign policy. The French Revolution divided American public opinion, and Washington issued the Proclamation of Neutrality in 1793, refusing to take sides in the conflict between Britain and France. This decision helped preserve American independence but fueled domestic political divisions. One of Washington's key achievements during this time was suppressing the Whiskey Rebellion in 1794, where farmers in western Pennsylvania protested a federal excise tax on whiskey. By sending a militia to quell the rebellion, Washington demonstrated the federal government's ability to enforce its laws. In 1796, Washington declined to run for a third term, setting a precedent for the peaceful transfer of power. His farewell address, written with the help of Alexander Hamilton, offered advice to the nation. He warned against the dangers of political parties, sectionalism, and foreign alliances, encouraging future generations to prioritize national unity. After leaving office in 1797, Washington retired to Mount Vernon, where he focused on his plantation and continued to be consulted on political matters. He freed his slaves upon his death, making him one of the few founding fathers to do so, though this action did not extend to his wife's dower slaves. George Washington died on December 14, 1799, after falling ill with a throat infection, likely acute epiglottitis. His death was met with nationwide mourning, and he was eulogized as first in war, first in peace, and first in the hearts of his countrymen. Washington's legacy as the father of his country is central to American history. He is remembered for his leadership, his commitment to Republican values, and his efforts to unify the nation. Washington's image and ideals are still celebrated in American culture and politics, and he remains a symbol of the virtues of selfless leadership and service to the nation. His face is immortalized on Mount Rushmore, the U.S. $1 bill, and countless monuments across the United States. Honors and memorials. Mount Rushmore, Washington's likeness is one of the 4 presidents carved into the monument in South Dakota. Washington, D.C., the U.S. capital city, is named in his honor. Washington Monument, a towering obelisk in Washington, D.C., built in his memory, is one of the most recognizable landmarks in the U.S. George Washington's influence on the United States and its foundational principles remains profound, shaping the nation's identity and democratic governance to this day. I ask you to like the video, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. See you later.